Hey everybody, Kevin Rose here. Welcome back to another episode of Block Zero. I hope by the time this is being played in your ears, the markets are up. We've had a brutal last couple of weeks, some pretty serious dips, but that is the space of cryptocurrency, and I'm totally fine with it. I think that it is obviously a little gut-wrenching when you see that you've lost money, but at the same time, you really have to look at this space and believe in this space over the long term. And I don't just say that in terms of whether you're going to make money or not. Like the way that I think of it is that if you were creating a brand new currency from scratch today, you wouldn't be printing paper. You'd be doing something along the lines of a distributed blockchain. And if you believe that the future of currency and the future of value transfer is going to be done digitally in a decentralized manner, then it's only a matter of weeks, months, years until that happens and everyone is using this and it's commonplace. And at that point, you'll be fine. You won't be underwater. You won't be down. This will be a multi-trillion-dollar market and everything will be okay. But in the meantime, you kind of have to have that long-term approach. I got a bunch of emails and actually a few phone calls from some friends that were really freaked out. And what do you think? Should I sell? And I'm like, why are you selling? Why? What's the point? Are you done with this? Do you think this is like the end of cryptocurrency? Like, should we just move on to something else? And if that's the case, and that's all you believe in this, and like you're just in it for the quick little pump and you want to cash out and go back to paper money, absolutely sell. Like, get out of the market. Don't ever look at this market again because it's not for you. Like, this is going to be a really bumpy ride over the next few years, and you just have to get used to it. And if anything, like for me, I'm just like putting in these buy orders as things continue to drop because that's how the real money is made. A buddy of mine was like, oh, I always buy high and sell low. And it's like, well, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. And he's like, well, when it drops, I get a little freaked out. And yeah, well, the only way to really make any money here is to buy low and then hold on to it. And so anyway, this is a long rant. I'm sure you all are true believers anyway, so I don't expect you to really get much value out of this rant. But I'm just kind of like on days where it's really bumpy, I close the browser, go outside, take the dog out, throw the frisbee around a little bit, and disconnect because it's just money. And at the end of the day, it's not what's going to make you happy anyway. And also, I should say, for me, a big driver in this has been in investing in technology versus investing in cryptocurrency. And let me explain to you the difference. Like someone that invests in just cryptocurrency is saying, well, I am buying this coin because it is going to go up. And I don't really think of that first. Of course, you want your investments to appreciate over time. But I think the first way that I approach it is I say, I'm investing in this technology because I believe it is going to be the future. And if it is the future, the value is going to increase. And so what that means is that means putting these coins into different buckets. So I have different verticals that I look at before I make an investment. I have a decentralized exchange vertical, which it has a bunch of different technologies and different coins inside of it. And so I evaluate inside of that bucket of coins that fall underneath that vertical and say, okay, who do I think are going to be the winners here? Who has the best technology? Who's put together the best team? And then make an investment based on that. Same thing goes for privacy coins. That's another bucket of probably 4 or 5 different currencies. And then I'm comparing those and making investments in who I think are going to be the winners. Same with kind of like DAGs and currencies that are extremely fast and highly divisible and no transaction fees. I could see that powering micropayments in the future. That's another one that I'm looking at. So there's probably about, I'd say 7 to 10 of these different buckets that I make investments in. And I think that way it's not about like, oh, this coin's down 20% today. This sucks. The question I ask myself before I decide to sell it or buy more is, do I still believe in this technology? Do I still believe that the future is going to require a decentralized exchange? And the answer is yes. And so if I believe that, then I'm holding and I have no fear, right? Because I think that is the future. Anyway, that's the way I look at it. That helps me sleep at night. And I hope it helps you in some way. Today's guest is the creator of Bancor. Eyal and I have gone back a while. He was the creator of MetaCafe back in the day. MetaCafe was this video site that was really popular. And when Dig was really popular, it was also one that was competing with YouTube. So it was a big player in the space. And we got to know each other, met over that. Fast forward, I hadn't heard from him in many, many years. And then all of a sudden, I found out that he was running Bancor, which is really weird because I was using Bancor prior to even knowing that he was running it. And then like all of a sudden, I made the connection. I was like, holy, wait, who's, hey? And then you know how it just like, when you think of someone you haven't seen in like a decade, it's like all of a sudden, like all these things start firing up about when we had met in the past. And so it was cool to reconnect. So what you're listening to is an interview that I did when I found out one of his co-founders from Bancor reached out to me on Telegram and was like, hey, Eyal's in town for just like one afternoon. Would you guys be interested in doing a podcast? And I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And I was like, wait, I know him. And so he came over to my house. I opened the door, hadn't seen him in 10 years. And so it's a little bit of us ranting and rambling and just kind of catching up. I think that makes for a fun show. So I think you'll enjoy it. I will say a couple things that you should know. One of the things that I talked to him about as he was walking out the door was I wanted to cover it in the show, and I'm kind of pissed because he was flying back to Israel that evening. Literally, when we finished the podcast, he went straight into an Uber to the airport and flew out. So I didn't get to cover this one article that was written by a professor. It's entitled "Bancor is Flawed," and it was this professor out of Cornell. He had written in a kind of takedown. It was a little bit, I will say it was a little pithy. It was like a little just like slamming them and kind of going after the project in a kind of mean-spirited way, which I didn't really appreciate. But anyway, nonetheless, it got a lot of buzz. And then they later went back, Bancor did, and did kind of a line-by-line rebuttal against that on their blog. Only reason I'm mentioning this is one, it's interesting reading, and you can check it out. Go over to Bancor's blog. You can see what they said in response to this. The second thing, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I didn't want you all to listen to this and be like, oh, Kevin's friends with him. He didn't mention the Bancor is Flawed article. And that's not the case. Yes, it is the case. I didn't mention it, but I did want to get into it, and we just didn't get a chance to do it. So if you're curious about that article and you're curious about the response, you can do your research, and I will link to it in the show notes. So if you're using a podcast app, most of them support links these days. You can open it up, and I will have both those little taps. So you can tap on it with your thumb, and we'll launch a browser, and you can read it. Okay, that said, yeah, I've used Bancor before I knew who was running it. It worked quite well. I used it for a very specific use case. I wanted to buy some kin. I was able to use it without creating an account and just using MetaMask. I thought it was awesome. And whether or not people claim that it's flawed or how many lines of code are required to do this and anyone could do it, it does its job, and it hasn't had any problems that I know of yet. So really cool, fun, exciting project. Great founder behind it, and I'm excited for you to listen to this interview. All right, this is Eyal Hertzog. So it'd be great to chat about when we first connected, because it's been so many years now. It was Web 2.0 days.
Yes, exactly.
What were you working on back then?
MetaCafe.
Yeah, I mean that was the video site that everybody was using.
Yeah.
It was like you were like neck and neck with YouTube for a long time.
Yeah, we're like we actually started before then. We started with a downloadable application because bandwidth was too expensive. So we had like a peer-to-peer mechanism to transfer the files between the different applications, and then bandwidth prices got really low, and we were like, oh, so we're gonna do it on the web, Yeah. And we released the website like at the same time that YouTube did, more or less, and we were actually bigger in the beginning, but I really screwed it up. I mean, I did I think a very critical mistake, because I assumed that online media is gonna be like regular TV, where you're gonna have hits and like a hit-based culture. And it turned out to be like a long tail kind of thing, where I didn't even understand the concept at the time. But everyone watching something different. And MetaCafe was really geared in order to get the best videos and the hits and the most popular. And YouTube was like a video sharing site that kind of show you relevance. So at some point it just exploded. It just exploded and became like one of the top 10 sites. And we really were left behind.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah, well, you and me both, man. I think we first met at Dig, or we were hanging out at Dig, and we were trying to figure this out just before we hit record. And What are we, 9 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, 9 or 10.
It's crazy.
No, probably 9. Yeah,
we're old timers.
Crazy days, and so much happened. I think it's kind of funny because it's a similar story to Dig in some way, because what turned up to be kind of the killer app for the Dig model was user generated categories.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's the same thing. It's the long tail.
It's the long tail.
Yeah, we were focused on like the homepage and how can we kind of make this more of a professional platform. Our investors at the time were like, there should be more CNN stories on here. And,
Yeah.
So we just wanted to make it this like commercial platform, and that was the exact opposite of what the community actually wanted.
Yeah. Because there's just there's such a huge scale. I actually read the book after I figured out my mistake. I read the book, The Long Tail, and one of the nice things I like there is that Chris Anderson was saying that when you don't have limitation on distribution, you can actually see the true variety and beauty of society, of humanity, where when you do have those constraints, then it limits society to the lowest common denominator and, the trashy kind of stuff. But, if I actually became a user after I came back to Israel, 2010. I became a user of the long tail of video, and I started watching like videos, like documentaries and kind of podcasts, stuff like that, for 10 hours a day for like 2 years straight. It was like my education phase in life. In those 2 years, I, by the way, ran into Bitcoin.
Oh wow!
2011, May 2011.
Wow, you were early.
Yeah,
that was really early.
I was, and I
what was the price back then?
It was $6 when I saw it.
It's about the same price it is today. Sorry, that's a horrible Bitcoin's crashing joke, because at the time of this recording,
you still make X thousand, but it is a hard day. But you know what? It's nothing compared, because back then I saw it on $6, and I got so excited because first of all I thought to myself, oh my God, this is a user generated currency. And it's happening. People trading it, and I wrote email to everyone that I know, everyone on my Outlook. It was Outlook back then, and I sent an email and I told them, "Hey guys, you got to check that out. This is like Bitcoin's the next thing." I put some graphs and showing the price going up, and then people wrote me back, "I think you have a virus."
Dude, why was I not on your email thread back then? You knew me.
I don't know. Probably. I mean, it's like hundreds of addresses. You probably weren't on my Outlook address book or something.
Yeah. Well, in all fairness, I think I saw it when it was like around 15 or 20 or somewhere around there. I don't know. That's when I was buying it. Or
no one actually bought following that. I mean, it's only like 2 people that are very good friends that called me after the email to talk to me about Bitcoin, and they went and bought it. But they're the only one. I mean, no one responded to it. The people thought it was like just some crazy talk. And actually they were right not to buy, because it was like going up every day. It was like, 6 and 8 and 12 and 25. And I was like so excited, 30, and then it crashed to 2.
Yeah.
And stayed there for a while. So everyone that I recommended and actually bought lost a lot of money because of that recommendation. And I was left with that feeling. So, today it's like, I started my way with a crash of 96%, after like a few weeks. So
there's been so many times that I've personally been burned because I don't let things play out. I don't know if you feel that way, but like I was that way I bought some Facebook stock early on, then the company went public, and I was like, I got to get out, and it's not doing so well. And the timeline was 6 to 8 months. I wasn't really thinking, 5-10 years from now.
Yeah.
And that's just happened to me so many times. So I've been trying to get a lot better with that, with crypto.
It's really about self-discipline, I think. Even though I think the universe is trying to tell me that I shouldn't do investing or something, because, there's the stories about the people that as soon as they invest, something bad happens. And that has been the story of my life. So I think, maybe that's a sign that I should focus on building products and not spending time investing in stuff. So I actually stay away from it. I just don't do it.
Really?
I just don't do it.
So you don't do any crypto investing at all, but you happen to run one of the biggest decentralized exchanges out there. So,
I mean, it's funny. We had a company before that. We started it in 2012. It's called AppCoin, and it was a platform for user-generated currencies, but not cryptocurrencies. It was cloud-based because we wanted to see how users kind of interact with this concept of currency. And we created like a really nice platform for creation of currencies with integrated marketplaces. And we started testing that in different communities. And kind of the first community was like a community of 30,000 moms that really loved it and used it for like, I don't know, half an hour a day average per user, which is like crazy, and 3 sessions a day and 1,000.
What were they doing with it?
So they were buying from each other like toys and clothes for the mom and for the kid, or jewelry. And
could you cash back out, or did you have to use this? You had to use this little internal token.
It was just an internal token. It was not back. It was issued when you join. So there was no mining.
Right.
But when you join, you get some. And when you invite your friend and he joins, you get some. And, all kind of...
it's a fascinating experiment, isn't it? Like what people will agree on has value. Like it's crazy.
And it was called Hearts.
Hearts?
The currency.
Yeah.
And it became a thing. There were memes about it and everyone was talking about it. It was like... I was hearing people hearing about it in some other person living room, which is like the dream of every entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where you overhear your own thing.
Yeah. So it was great, but then we saw that over the long period, it kind of declines. The usage slowly declined, like over 2 years.
What do you attribute that to?
So we researched that a lot, and we tried to figure out what's wrong, and we got to a conclusion that I think was the correct one, which is the problem was lack of liquidity. So it's almost like you create a local network, which is great and useful, but think how much more useful it would be if you connected to the internet. So, local networks were here before the internet, and they were useful, but you cannot compare the two. It's like a million times more.
Yeah, the only thing I did with a local network was like LAN gaming. Remember, before you could do internet gaming, you had to have them all hooked up to. You'd like bring your computer to a friend's house.
Yeah. So I was serving in the Israeli military in the intelligence, and I was at the age of 21. I was running like 1,000 computer network, like a huge network, and it was, of course, disconnected from the internet. It was Israeli intelligence.
Right.
But we had like email and calendars and file sharing and SQL and, all kind of things. And that was back in 95, 94.
Wow.
So I really, so I know that, networks can have value, but obviously, if you take a currency and you use it internally, it's useful. But if you have liquidity, it means that this currency is connected to the entire financial network of the world, because you can convert it to anything in few steps, right?
Sure.
And we didn't have that because it was a small currency of like group of moms. No exchange would list it. There were not even exchanges. Obviously, it would not be listed in the stock market or anything like that. So it was not liquid. There's no price discovery, because the challenge with liquidity is price discovery, if you think about it. And this is where the seeds of Bancor started to grow, because we had to find a different system, a different approach to liquidity. And it took us years to kind of experiment and think and evolve the concept. But only in 2017, in the beginning, we came up with this Bancor protocol, which is really a different approach to liquidity. It's not based on bid and ask. It's not based on matching buyers and sellers.
Right.
It's based on a different model, which is asynchronous. So you don't, I can buy now and you can sell later or buy later, and everyone does whatever he wants whenever he wants, with no constraint. And the price is affected by each transaction.
Right.
So when you use that approach, then you get to a situation that first, there's never a liquidity risk. There's always liquidity at all time, which is...
I don't understand that. I mean, obviously the bid-ask model has been around for so long.
Yeah,
and we've all traded stocks before, so pretty much everyone is familiar with that model. So, can you explain to me in like that, subreddit, explain it like I'm 5, like like really simple terms, like how does that work then? Like what happens if there's just a massive sell-off and some black swan event happens?
I'll give you an example. It's a new way that I learned to kind of talk about it, because we always try to find the simplest way to describe it. So let's imagine like a very simple situation. Let's imagine that you have 2 buckets, and you have in one bucket you have BNT or currency, in the other bucket you have Ether. And let's say, just for the record, that the BNT equals 1 Ether, right? And I have 1,000 BNT and 1,000 Ether on each bucket. Now, when let's say I want to convert BNT to Ether.
So wait, so you're talking about you have 2 wallets holding 1,000 of each.
It's not even a wallet. Think about it's a smart contract that holds those 2 balances.
Okay.
1,000 of each, and let's say that...
But where are they being actually held? Because the contract can't hold those currencies.
That's the power of smart contracts.
But aren't they just pointing to an address that's holding them?
No. Smart contracts are like Ethereum bots. Their account, I can actually transfer now my coins to a smart contract. Now, when I'm saying transfer my coins to a smart contract, it means that on the smart contract that manage the coin, there's a record that says that some of the coin is owned by a specific address,
right,
which is that other smart contract.
Right, that I understand.
So and if a smart contract is owning tokens in that way, then it can also issue a call in order to move those tokens to some other address.
Right.
So you can say that a smart contract can hold any asset that an Ethereum user can hold the same way.
So any ERC20 token, basically.
Any ERC20 token, or even any rights. For example, let's say that you have like a smart contracts and there's a specific address that can upgrade it. Okay, can call an API and upgrade or set something, and only that specific address. So that specific address could be me, right? My own private public key. And that address can be a contract, and that contract can be some kind of a multi-sig. So now you'll have 5 people that need to sign in order to issue that upgrade.
Right.
But for that contract that enables the upgrade, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if the command comes from me, like a personal account, or from a smart contract account. It's the same thing. It's just that one is manual transaction that I can do whatever I want, and the other one is like a bot that can only perform the transactions that are programmed into it.
Sure.
You can program whatever you want.
Right.
So imagine this smart contract holding BNT and Ether. And just for the example, let's say that it has 1,000 BNT and 1,000 Ether, and that 1 BNT right now worth 1 Ether. And let's say that I want to convert 10 BNT to Ether. So I add the BNT, I send it to the smart contract. Now it has 1,010 BNT. And let's say it sends me 10 Ether. And now it's at 990 Ether. Now the smart contract uses a very simple formula. He thinks that whatever he has in the BNT is equal to whatever he has in the Ether in total. So now it would mean that 1,010 BNT equals 990 Ether. So basically, Ether just became more expensive because of what I did. If I do it again, it will become more expensive and more expensive and more expensive until it will reach infinity, which it never would, because as Ether become more expensive, it means that BNT becomes cheaper. And then you'll see, people doing the opposite thing of putting in Ether, taking out BNT for the other direction, because it supports the 2 direction.
What if there's a run on one side of the house?
So what will happen is that if there is a run, and we see that in our exchange all the time. Let's say that people now are buying EOS. So they buy EOS, they buy EOS, they buy EOS, the price will go up and up and up. Now, EOS is traded in many other exchanges.
Are you talking about other decentralized exchanges?
Other centralized, decentralized, doesn't matter.
Okay.
But it has a price. So if on Bancor it becomes expensive, it means two things. That, first of all, for anyone that want to do the opposite thing, to sell EOS, he will get the best price, right? Because now it's expensive to buy. It means that you get a lot from selling EOS. That's one thing. But also, more systematically, you will have arbitragers, and usually arbitrage bots that are balancing for you. Because they can now...
So they're coming in and monitoring your prices, and they're automatically taking advantage of that and getting that little chunk of arbitrage.
Yes.
Crazy. And that's actively happening? That's keeping everything insane.
And we didn't know if it would happen. It started happening from the first second we released the first smart token, BNT, back in June 22nd it was. Arbitragers starting to act.
How much are these arbitragers making? Do you have any sense?
I mean, I'm sure they're making quite a bit because, first of all, those arbitragers, they work across many exchanges, right? I mean, the reason that we see roughly the same prices between the exchanges is thanks to arbitragers. They can be considered the liquidity movers, if you will.
Right?
They take liquidity here because it's needed there, and they'll move it and they'll make some profit on the way. With Bancor, they don't even need to kind of withdraw and deposit to some other exchange because it's all on chain. So it's even shorter route arbitrage for them.
I see.
And
the only thing they would have to worry about is the price of gas at that point.
That's right. That's right. And, whenever there's like a crypto kitty or a kind of a spam attack, that could be a problem. Although we see it as a temporary problem because I don't know if you're familiar with how EOS is dealing with that, but they're not using transaction fees in order to fight spam. I mean, this is why transaction fees are there. The miners are getting money from the new issuance of new tokens, of new currency. They don't getting paid by the fees specifically. I mean, they get the fees, but that's a smaller portion. And the fees are there mainly to prevent spam. And it's a horrible way to prevent spam because it hurts all the people that actually use the technology. Right? You want to cherish them. You want to promote them. You want to give them free money just to use the technology, and like PayPal did or so. But now it's really a problem. And EOS is taking a very different approach because they use staking. So let's say I take like $1 million of EOS and I lock them.
Sure.
And people locked like $50 million of EOS. That would mean that 2% of the network capacity would guarantee to be mine. Even, of course, I can get more if it's not fully utilized. But if it's fully utilized by spammers or who cares, 2% of the capacity is really allocated to me because I locked 2% of the stake of the EOS that deals with that. And at this model, no one pays for anything. I mean, if you're a spammer, and let's say, they lock $50 million. In order to spam 50% of the network, you'll need to buy $50 million worth of EOS and stake them. That will be hard. And you'll only affect 50% of the network. And obviously that will,
that hurts your value of the fact that you even bought the 50 million to begin with.
And that will shoot the price, to the sky. And which means that it will cost you even more than $50 million, maybe $100 million.
Oh, you're just saying as buying in, it'll shoot the price. Yeah.
So it's a much better system. So I think that the whole fee thing is just kind of an early stage kind of problem that will go away. But we're dealing with it now. And usually if there are high fees, so larger transactions make more sense if you have large fees. But actually now it's manageable. It's like it's smaller fees.
Now, EOS was the one that was running into a bunch of issues, though, right? Weren't they the ones that MIT was finding holes in their source code, or was that?
I think IOTA. I think that was IOTA. Okay. EOS is built by Dan Larimer. He has like more experience building and delivering successful blockchains.
Right. He's done like 5 different projects, right?
The most prominent is like Steemit.
Yeah.
and BitShares.
That's right.
And both like at least a few days ago were like over $1 billion.
Yeah.
Today it's probably less. But and he went through that whole cycle. He's been talking to Satoshi in 2010 at Bitcoin Talk and, you know, arguing with him. And the guy has a lot of experience with deploying actually usable blockchain. I mean, Steemit and BitShares have more transactions than Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's pretty amazing, but they do. Because they're used a lot and they're decentralized. And, you know, some people say they're centralized because of this, but I don't subscribe to that view. People think that if you don't have the copy on 10,000 computer, it's centralized. I think that as long as you use digital signature and the database is replicatable, then it's a decentralized database by definition. We didn't have decentralized databases before Bitcoin. We couldn't have. Actually, it's funny. You cannot have a decentralized database without a currency, because someone needs to incentivize, something needs to incentivize those computers who maintain the integrity of the database.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of would have been, would LimeWire or something like that have counted? Like some of those BitTorrent or...
So that's file sharing. And file sharing doesn't have this issue of consistency. With database, you need I don't know, you guys use MySQL? And
back at Dig Days, yeah,
and you have like replications, right?
Oh yeah,
if you notice the replication, it needs to imitate the exact order of actions, of transactions in the database. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not in the right order, you'll get different results. You know, something.
We had issues there.
Yeah, we all have. But I think, you know, what I'm saying is that there's a big difference between file sharing and database. This is why those are kind of two different things. They say the database have it's like a common repository with data integrity.
Right. That,
you know, a lot of people can touch different, you know, parts of the same set of data and it still keep its own, you know, set of rules and again, internal integrity. And we didn't have anything like that on the internet for Bitcoin.
Right.
And the first decentralized database that we saw was actually Bitcoin, which was amazing, you know, like a technological wonder. It was combining a lot of different technology. But I think that since then, at least my experience is that, I got excited about the fact that you can have digital decentralized money and what does that mean for... But it's almost like... you know, getting an internet connection and only for the first time and just thinking about what it would do to newspapers. Mm-hmm. And not realizing it's not just newspapers, it's radio, it's television, it's telephone, it's everything.
I remember
it's
that.
Taxes, right?
That was the big like talking point about the internet.
Newspapers. Because you always kind of replicate the... And by the way, this is why... I think stock markets are using the bid-ask model because that was what we had before it was digital. Mm-hmm. We had people shouting different, I'll buy for this price and I'll buy for that price.
That's a good point.
And just like with every technology, we always replicate the old world to the new technology, like we do like Encarta.
Sure.
And then like after a few years, we're like, we can do Wikipedia.
Right.
I mean, but we don't get that immediately. I mean,
that's a really good point. Yeah, it's always kind of like, and we're making baby steps in that direction. Because if you think about like, you know, up until like even just a year ago, I was like still checking my stocks, and the stock market closes. It's over for the day. You know? And it's like, it's such a weird thing. I don't even care about stocks anymore. I don't even look at them. And then everything is trading around the clock, you know? And it's like a couple of times, as horrible as this sounds, and it's the reason I need to meditate more. It's probably the reason I created a meditation app. But like, I like wake up at like, 2 a.m. and I'm like, what time is it? And then like a quick swipe over to see how the markets are doing, on my phone. And that's horrible. It's a horrible thing.
Yeah. I mean, people say it's like inhumane that you have like 24/7 trading with this crypto.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal. It's a horrible way to wake up in the morning.
Coin market cap is like the 240. The rank of coin market cap is 240 in the world.
That's insane.
And like according to SimilarWeb, 240.
What do you think that like site is worth? It has to be. I mean, that's crazy.
It is.
Wow.
Feels mainstream.
Yeah. So back to Bancor. I do want to tell one story about my actual use case on this. So I didn't know. Obviously, we had hung out back in the day, and I didn't know you were connected to it until like today. your co-founder sent me a Telegram message. It was like, "You guys need to hang. He's flying out." And I was like, "What? What is going on here?" So the reason that I got to tell you, I actually absolutely loved it. And then the reason I loved it when I used it for the first time was because I was so excited about the promise of decentralized exchanges, because I think that's something that the world needs. And I was using a handful of these alternatives, and to go in and see that the bid ask, there's like 2 trades happening in an hour. It's like just a dead zone, right? You can't do any serious sales or purchases there. And then I was having to like wrap my Ethereum into a token to like get it into the system and then do another transfer. And I remember I was wanting to buy some, way back in the day, I wanted to buy some kin, and I went to your site and it was like 2 taps and done. And I was like, okay, something's not right here. Like, you're making money off of me somehow. Like, how do you make money? Like,
okay, that's a good question. I get that a lot. And you probably shared the experience. I mean, we both had big visions and big ideas, and we probably pitched them to hundreds of VCs.
Sure.
And then you get to the VC and you tell him how you're going to create this community and ecosystem. It's going to be amazing. And then he asks you like, so how are you going to make money?
Right.
And you're like, come on, this is so cool. Why ruin it?
It's consumer internet.
Like,
come on, just write a check.
Let the people do their things. So I'm here to tell you that we've won. We've eventually won, because right now those ICOs and what they're building, they're not building for-profit company. They're building something else. And I do a lot of kind of ICO advising because it's important, because people, they have no experience, they don't understand the space. Most people weren't here for 7 years. So I feel it almost like it's my mission to help people understand it.
That's great.
And I do a lot of advisory. And the most critical point that takes the longest for people to understand is that it's not the same old, let's create a for-profit entity and build something. Now you have another option, which I would say it's almost like a hierarchical level upward. It is, let's not create a company, let's create an economy. I call that online economy. And when you create an online economy, your goal is to facilitate collaboration between the participants of this economy, and your goal is for that economy to grow. Mm-hmm. It's not to make money. Mm-hmm. Economies are not for profit. They're actually non-profit. This is why Ethereum is a non-profit foundation, because they never try to make money out of you. Now, creating a successful online economy can be very profitable if you hear the stories about the Ethereum founders, because you keep some of the tokens.
Yeah.
And your upside is from the growth and the success of the economy. If you made it, I mean, most don't, of course, but if you do, you can make billions, but not without generating or ever trying to generate profit.
I know that's the thing that is really fascinating about this whole movement, is that, forever it's always been about, you have to turn a profit at some point. You have to have an eye towards revenue. And that is a big piece of your business. And for the first time, it's really switched, and there's no earnings call. You know what I mean? It's about, did I do right by the community? Did I get more people excited about the projects and the prospects of what I'm trying to build? And people buy into that vision, and they support you by purchasing your tokens or your currency or whatever it may be.
And by participating in your economy. Mm-hmm. Because, I mean, let's take, again, Ethereum is a great example that they created. I mean, the first online economy was Bitcoin, right? Which was just a decentralized currency. Mm-hmm. It was permissionless, and obviously everything that was unpermitted was a killer app, right? Because obviously you can do that now. You could not buy weed online before that, but now you can, or contribute to WikiLeaks.
Right.
And they recently came out say thank you for blocking
PayPal,
credit cards.
They got shut down
because they only got Bitcoin all those years. So
that's amazing.
They're like thanking everyone. So that was the first time, but there was no legitimate killer app with Bitcoin, which is why it never exploded. But then Ethereum came, and it was quickly becoming apparent that the killer app for Ethereum is something that we are familiar with for quite some time: fundraising. I mean, it provided a superior solution for fundraising on so many fronts. It was superior. The overheads were like non-existent. It was global. There's like you can have many investors. It's liquid. The investments are liquid. Think about that. With the VC, you can only take money from people that you can tell them, okay, give me $30 million, and in 10 years I'll tell you what's gonna. There's very little money like that in the world that can go away for 10 years. But when it's liquid, then a lot more money is becoming kind of potential for early stage investment. Anyway, it was a big hit, but it was not just Ethereum. Ethereum was, again, the environment, the platform, the economy. What actually did it is thousands of companies that participated in that economy, whether it's to invest or to raise or to build services around that. Or to audit smart contracts, there's a huge industry.
Sure.
And that's the power of setting up an online economy. Because, when you set up like something like Dig, so you enjoy the fact that, users are creating content and you don't work so hard, but your user but none of that is for profit. All those users are just, participating in this media game. But with Ethereum, you have, because it's an economy is made of the for-profit entities. It's like economy with no for-profit entities is like a company without employees. It's empty.
Right.
And that allows it to scale horizontally because so many people, so many entrepreneurs are immersed in the Ethereum economy. How many entrepreneurs were working on Dig? Not so, because it was not an economy, it was a service.
Right.
But here, since there is a financial upside, it brings entrepreneurs in, and you can see disruption in this scale. Think about it. In less than 6 months, they became bigger than the VC industry for early stage. This is unheard of.
Yeah.
That it can even be done. I never thought it could be done, but it just grew like crazy because of those very special properties. And you could not do it in the past because you could not issue your own currency in the same way to create an economy. And if you tried, it was centralized and you'll have the risk of shutting it down. But economies are decentralized, right? You can, before there were governments, there were economies based on gold and silver, and it's a decentralized thing.
Do you think this spreads even further? Because right now what we're seeing is, the majority of projects that are created and hyped have to do some way with kind of powering or working in the decentralized version of this new world. Does that spread to, let's just say, individuals, bands, things like that? Do tokens get issued for everyday things? Because it's almost like a popularity contest in a way. Like the value of a currency is based on its real-time popularity.
It is right. I think it is. It has to do with popularity. I think that, whenever in general, this is a different asset class that you could theoretically take every stock in the world and think about how you can not every stock. I would say you can take every company.
You can take every company,
and you can say to the company. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you issue your own token, and
you could take every person though, too.
You only have one section, one line in your terms of service that if you pay us with your token, you get 10% discount or 20% discount. That's it. Just that thing. This is by the way what Binance is doing.
Yeah, Binance is doing this. There's Robinhood. There's a handful of exchanges. They're KuCoin. Like they're all issuing their own tokens.
And just by giving discount to those who pay you with your token, you created an economy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And if you created an economy,
this is what I'm getting at. Like, are bands going to do this? Are individuals going to do this? Like,
I think so. I think I was talking to someone who was talking to me about tokenizing songs.
Yeah.
So you can buy shares in the song and get part of the royalty
as it becomes more popular. Absolutely.
But it's really about, what is the revolution of the tokens is liquidity. It's all about liquidity. It's the fact that again, if you give, let's say, 10% discount for people who pay in your token, and you're like a network of coffee places. And I go to the network and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best coffee I drank. And I have these tokens. And I don't know if I'm going to drink so much coffee in my life, but I buy $100,000 worth of your tokens. And why do I do that? Because I think that if you're going to grow, your economy going to grow, and more people would want to use your token to buy your coffee, then my $100,000 will be worth more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I would have done that. So yeah, Blue Bottle Coffee is a great example. Is that we invested in it many years ago, and we bought equity, and I would have just bought the tokens because I was like, this is phenomenal coffee. Why not? And if I can get a discount on top of that, that's a no-brainer.
And people kind of compare market caps of tokens to equity, and it has nothing to do. It's like, how many dollars in circulation in the United States? Do you even know?
No idea.
I mean, no one cares.
Right.
But this is what we measure in crypto.
Sure.
The circulating supply.
Yeah, that's what we peg it
which
to.
Which is like a weird number. It's not like stocks. Stocks, you can say earning per share. So, it has like a specific attribute of profit connected to the stock.
Right.
But with dollars are still valuable, even though you don't get any profit sharing from the United States. But they're valuable because it's a currency being used in a vibrant economy.
You can get profit sharing if you stake them in terms of bonds, right? Because that's what bonds are. They're just like staking your currency. You're locking it up for a certain number of years.
No, but I don't know if you get profit sharing, you get more printed currency.
That's right. So you get diluted. That's right.
Everyone else get diluted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you get a little diluted. But the idea is that it's a totally different asset class, and thinking that some valuation is high or low, it's really has everything to do about what is the size of the economy, how much kind of currency you need to run the economy, and then you need to add to that how many people are buying the currency because they believe the economy will grow, and then you can add to that how many people are buying it because they believe that other people will keep buying it because they believe the economy will grow.
Right.
And as long as those trends are positive, then you will see value increase. And if they're negative, it will be a decrease. But we come from a reality of currency monopoly. It's almost like you take some people from the Middle Ages and say, okay, now you're here, you can choose your leader, who you want to run the government and, the state. And they're like, you crazy? Ask the king. He should decide on
right.
Well, what do you ask us? Well, and no, it's a democracy. We have options. It will take them a while to wrap their head around what's happening. We are in the same place.
Yeah, you're starting to make me think that way.
Dollar. That's what or shekels in Israel. And that's what you have. But the freedom to choose what currency you hold is more powerful and sacred than the freedom of choosing your leader.
So do you think future wealth will be, so think of it, let me just throw something out there. This is just a crazy random idea that I'm having right now. So if I am going and I am operating a vehicle that doesn't have to make a profit, and I have a fixed amount of supply, I start to sell those out over time, sell them off over time, the value increases, I'm doing a good job. I hold a percentage of those for myself. So I have seen my value go up. Now, at some point, I just can't keep selling these things forever because I'm not running this business for a profit. Does my future revenue come from the fact that I diversify into other people that are doing the same thing?
I mean, if you're issuing a token, first of all, you don't have a profit, but
is there no more salaries in the future? Like, I guess what I'm getting at is like, does salary go away? Does the fact that we make so much per year go away? Does it just the fact that we hold buckets of things that we love?
So
and they appreciate, and there's like a real-time barter of tokens and for everything we do.
So it is really about holding things we love. But, when we're talking about holding things, we have a blog that we published before ICO. And the title was The Community of the Currency. And it was actually something related to ICO, but we did make the point that every currency is a community. And you become a member of this community by holding the currency. And when you become a member, it's not like with Facebook groups, like you join or leave. It's with currency, you join or you really join or you really, really, really join. And,
right.
and it's really how much you're intertwine your financial future with that group. Because if I hold 100% of my fortune in Ether,
right,
then I'm 100% tied to that group and to the success of that group as an economy, as an independent economy.
But that's ultra risky. You'd probably
that is very risky. Just an example, not a recommendation. But it's really about having several groups, because
right.
I'm not a member of a single online community. There's no reason that I'll be a member of a single online economy. And just the freedom to say, these are the economies I'm member in, and I'm member by holding. This everyone's talking about right. hodling, right? It's real. It's real because think about it. When you move your wealth from Bitcoin to Ether, you actually weakening Bitcoin and you're strengthening Ether. Mm-hmm. And when many people do that, it has a strong effect. It's a much stronger effect than putting your, going to the ballot. It's really have, a financial effect on specific groups. And, we all talk about wealth distribution. And there's a big fight about it because people say, I earned that money. Why would he take it from me? And other people say, it really doesn't make sense that you own like 90% of the money is like held by 4 people. And both sides are right. But the solution is completely different. I can stop using that currency. And when I stop using that currency, which is concentrated on very few people, and I choose something else that maybe has some basic income or whatever I choose, which is in line with my values, I'm actually, a lot of people doing like me would make those people not so rich.
Right. That's crazy. So, wow, this is a lot to think about. So 20 years from now, do I walk in a bar, pull out my phone or whatever device it is then, and I have, 150 Coors Light tokens, and I do a real-time exchange for a, martini token, and that's how, I'm holding like hundreds of different things that are services that I interact with?
I think is really, again, think about online communities. You're probably a member of some that you care about.
Sure.
I really think that, there's some capacity of how many groups I can belong to in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. So I would say that you probably hold as many as you can feel, as many currencies as you can feel that you're a real part of. But when you want to pay for something, the conversion is going to be as simple as sending a packet to Israel internet to my computer and not caring that it's going through a super complex routing mechanism.
Sure. That'll all be hidden behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's just automatic. I mean, and this is, by the way, what Bancor enables.
Yeah, this is the only way for mass user adoption, right? Because in the long term, my mom or whoever it may be is not going to launch MetaMask and agree to understand how to increase the gas if there's a little congestion. It needs to get a lot simpler.
Of course.
So what's your long term vision? Give me what's happening in the next 6 months, year, and then 5-10 years out.
So interestingly, it's a great plug for that because we are exactly working right now on a very simplified wallet, a web-based secure wallet. So your mom would not have to install MetaMask.
Love that.
And we'll
forget my mom. I would love that. That sounds great. And nothing against MetaMask, but it's a lot of steps.
Right. And you know what? It doesn't work on mobile. Come on.
That's a good point. You know what's funny? I downloaded Brave, the browser, on my mobile phone, like praying that MetaMask was on there. And I was digging through the settings. I'm like, oh, they didn't include it. So yeah.
So it should obviously work on mobile. So we're working on that. And this is actually a short-term kind of project. I think we'll see that in the next month. We'll see
awesome.
the first version. We've been working on that for quite some time. But
are you always going to stay ERC20 or Ethereum? How would you be able to bridge? Would you do atomic swaps eventually? How are you going to be able to bridge across different other currencies that aren't based on Ethereum?
So there are many cross-blockchain technologies. We're actually spending a lot of time researching into that.
But you will support those eventually?
Of course. I mean, we will be that. Think about that. Today we're starting to talk with many people in the industry, and there are several other projects doing that as well, talking about a cross-blockchain tokens. So a token that you can move from Ethereum to Ethereum Classic to EOS to NEO, and it's the same pool of supply. But you can have 20% of your supply on NEO and 30% of your supply on EOS, and it just move between them.
So you don't ever actually hold those currencies, but you're holding a token that represents those currencies.
No, you essentially, because you can say that you can hold Bancor token, you can hold it on Ethereum, or you can hold it on EOS, or you can hold it on NEO. If it becomes cross blockchain, which
I see.
What we're working on, and the reason that it's very important for us to be cross blockchain is because we're a liquidity network. Liquidity networks is very different than being a blockchain currency like Ether or Bitcoin. A liquidity network is a token that a good way to describe it is that if you issue your own token tomorrow and you want to be connected to the Bancor liquidity network, you have to stake BNT. So if you stake like $1 million BNT, you have like $1 million bandwidth to the liquidity network. What is $1 million bandwidth? It means that, if you move tens of thousands of dollars, you barely touch the price. If you have like $10 million of bandwidth to the liquidity network, then hundreds of thousands of dollars of transaction would barely touch the price. So, as big of transaction you want to make, then you'll have to stake more BNT. And that's kind of what the token is for, is to facilitate liquidity between many other tokens.
I see.
But for that purpose, it needs to be cross-blockchain, because I might want to convert a token from Ethereum to a token on EOS. So I'm converting that token from Ethereum to BNT. Then I can move this BNT to EOS, because I can move BNT between blockchains. And then on EOS, I will convert it to the other token on EOS.
So is this a kind of open standard that you're developing, or how do you plan to encourage other blockchains to support this?
So it's really not about other blockchains that's supporting it, because it only works on smart contract blockchains. So it's really about supporting smart contracts.
I see.
And then it's the question of how you do it, because there are many different ways to kind of provide cross-blockchain interoperability. It's really an early stage, but it's happening right now. They're like the first projects are getting out that enable cross-blockchain. And
who do you think's doing the best work there? Because I've seen some of that, like on Arc is doing some work on that front.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say. I think that I don't even say, because I feel like I build apps. I don't build technology. I mean, again, maybe we're similar here. We make technology accessible. We're not building the technology. It's a different form of art, right? So understanding those attack vectors and how to do, it's not my thing,
So
I'm really about.
Obviously, you have engineers though that are worrying about this. I hope.
No, but even my engineers think about it. They are specifically most of the engineers are writing smart contracts. And to write smart contracts, you really need to describe the functionality. But what makes it secure is those engineers that programmed Ethereum. They really know how to do. Now, when you're talking about cross-blockchain technology, you have the same situation where you want to build something that is protected from attacks and forgery and all kind of different, different abuses. And when you, and to do that, you really need to be good with blockchain technology and building stuff on blockchain. And it's a different form of art. So we're funding some efforts. We're looking at some other efforts. We're learning about it, but we really want to see the solution coming kind of from the industry, from the heart of it, from the people that knows how to build secure blockchain, and we will adopt it. But the important thing is that it makes sense for many, many different tokens not to be constrained to a specific blockchain. Because again, the blockchain is just it's like a decentralized database, right? The whole revolution is about making database decentralized. And just like you can have application that uses one database or two database or three or switch their database, it shouldn't be kind of a big difference. And database should compete. We saw a lot of databases in the last 20 years, right? Out competing each other. Some maintain longer, some shorter, but this is, I think, what we're seeing here. We're seeing every blockchain is like a new, better database with higher performance that can do more things, potentially more secure or whatever. And I think we're going to keep seeing that. It's actually much harder to build and much easier to build a new blockchain than to upgrade an existing one.
Definitely with some of them.
It's hard. It's hard.
So in the future, then you were talking about the wallet on the desktop. I'm assuming this will exist for mobile as well. So someone will launch Bancor
It's basically web for desktop and for mobile, and you can, it will exist on both, and you can actually test it today. It works today, but only we use it for bounty programs and like non-risky things. But that's kind of the next phase. The phase after that is what we like to call the community. I came up with this concept. I call it the 3-tier ecosystem, and apparently it's not a well-known concept. But whenever I explain it to people, I explain it as this is the difference between Dig and Reddit. Because two-tier ecosystem is a
I love that you're using me in your explanation. That's great.
It's like a platform and users. And a 3-tier ecosystem is a platform, super users, and users. And with a 2-tier, the users are coming from the platform. With the 3-tier ecosystem, the users are coming for whatever the super users, the spaces that the super users have created. Like Facebook groups is a great example of a 3-tier ecosystem. Even Wikipedia. With the 3-tier ecosystem, you always have permission. When you have users that have extra permission over other users, it's probably a 3-tier ecosystem. And those ecosystems are like creating the most important applications online. Even, by the way, those group messaging, they also have like those who create the group, manage the group, and those who use the group.
Sure.
There's two different audiences and a smaller scale, but the same thing. And
so how does that apply to Bancor though?
So we have this level that we like to call it the community level. So we don't see ourselves as just a liquidity network or just a wallet. We see ourselves as a commercial network, if you compare it to like social networks or commercial network. And we have the concept of community. Now, in fact, every token, a token is essentially a property, something that a community can have. So around every token, you have a community, and the community have a member list. And you can join the community, you can leave the community, you can follow the community, see what's happening. You have a discussion group for the community. And you have like a front page with like a bulletin board with messages for the community. And we think that this notion of group of people is actually critical in order to provide kind of the basic set of services for any usage of currency and cryptocurrency based applications. This notion of group is critical. So
especially in terms of support, right? That's one of the things that's falling over left and right when any of these get scale. Support is the first thing to go.
And there's something about, what I like about those groups, whether it's again Facebook group or Reddit or it's really about leadership, because I've been working with a lot of Facebook groups at the time, because they were like they were used to build marketplaces, and with AppCoin we also did market. So we try to understand, what's the difference. But you really meet all those people that set up those groups and spend up like 8 hours a day, managing and moderating.
Oh, for sure. It's a labor of love, really. People have to be really passionate about this stuff.
Exactly. And you see kind of a new age digital leadership, if you will, of people that are being like an online entrepreneur, trying to build this group, trying to get momentum around.
It's a bottoms up approach, yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of power in that concept of, and I think this is why something Bitcoin lacks, because Bitcoin is an experiment with development which is lacking leadership. They don't have leadership. They have deity. They don't have a leadership.
Yeah. So, do you think that this is kind of like you're speaking of what a lot of people are talking about right now in terms of? Tell me if you think these are similar in terms of just kind of this headless organization where the bottoms up ideas get bubbled up by the community. The community kind of implements a lot of them. Is that kind of more of a model that you believe in?
No, I think this model almost proven not to work. I mean.
But isn't that what happens when you have like super users and people that are?
I think that the super users are the new leaders of those spaces. I mean, they are the leaders of these online communities.
What are the spaces though that fall under Bancor? Would that be support? Would it be what? Do you?
No, for example, if you create a local currency, I mean, there's someone running it, some leader with some vision about what it would be. If there's a group around, let's say, a specific, even Eyals, I mean, that's also a group of people that, really believe in that and want to interact. It could be a local business, and you have a group of its customer, but then again, you have the business in the center. I think there's something I like to call the religion of decentralization that we're experiencing right now, because we're like, oh, decentralization is good for networks. Look at the internet. It's good for database. Look at blockchain. So it must be good for everything. And let's build software in the decentralized way without leadership.
No, I'm glad you're saying this, actually. I believe the exact same thing as you. I just feel that a headless organization it's very dangerous, and there's no true vision, and then that's what leads to all kinds of different little internal wars.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But that said, I do believe that you can kind of deputize and enable people in the community to help you and bottoms up kind of bring those ideas to the surface, figure out roadmaps, like suggest great features. Like there is a lot of value in the community. You just can't let it get carried away, because ultimately it's your project. And if people have a better way of doing things, they should go and build it themselves, which I think is great. That's what's beautiful about the whole system.
Yeah. No one, I
let the best one win, right?
I couldn't agree more. And I think that this experiment that we're doing with, I mean, if you compare it, for example, to Ethereum has a very clear leadership. And I think you can see the progress of the project. And it makes a lot of sense, because guess what? When you were in Dig, you had a lot of people that had to kind of work and develop the damn thing and test it and design it and control the content, moderate the content. And those people needed to do great job at whatever area they were responsible. And there was room only for one person in the organization that have like a horizontal, wide look on the industry, on all the aspects of the organization, on the users and on the problems and on the legal stuff, and kind of synthesize all this information to a clear vision and direction and strategy. You cannot have every person in that position. Otherwise, the organization wouldn't do anything.
That's right. Yeah.
It needs to be a designated person.
Yeah. Someone needs to hoard the cats.
And when you don't have that, then I don't know about you, but every innovation that changed my life was always developed in a centralized manner.
Yeah.
Always. And I think it should say, even companies, think about that. Companies can organize any way they want, right? Because when you start, you can make your company like an equal vote company. Every decision is equal. You can do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, they exist. There's a lot of this holacracy movement. There's a whole system that has been created. I actually had a good buddy of mine, 2 friends now, Tony Shea over at Zappos and Ryan Carson over at Treehouse, that tried to implement the holacracy system inside of their organizations, where you have small teams of people that kind of like can override the CEO. And I haven't talked to Tony Shea about how that's going for him. I think they've peeled a lot of that back, but I know my buddy Ryan is like, that was the worst experiment I ever did. And he ended up undoing the entire thing and going back to a standard model.
So, and it should, we should probably ask ourselves, if every company in the world can decide to run however they want, does it, should we learn something from the fact that eventually all of them became dictatorships? Right. And we look at dictatorship as a bad word, but it's not. Monopoly is a bad word. If you connect dictatorship with monopoly, you get North Korea. That's a bad thing. But if you have a dictatorship in forms of cooperation, and you can choose which corporation you want to work for, or which corporation you want to buy from.
So the freedom is still in the individual's hands.
The choice. The key is the choice. When you have, the enemy of choice is monopoly. But dictatorship on its own, it's not a bad architecture. It's, a hierarchical organization. It's not bad. Again, it's bad only if you have no choice. Right. Then it's bad. But if you do have choice, then it will just adapt in order to make sure that you choose it. Right. Right. So I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of almost like anger. I feel from it's I almost call it the war between engineers and entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. Because the engineers is like, oh, we don't need the management class. We can just build the software because we do what we need to do. And the management class is like, upset with the engineers for not doing what they're told. And there's like a constant war of engineers.
You and I have both been through this.
And in the kind of crypto world, it takes new face because it's like, the engineers are like taking over on like things like Bitcoin and even Ethereum in different ways, and they kind of rebel. But I think that it only leads to mutual appreciation eventually between the groups, to understand that we both need each other. That's right. And no one is like doing nothing. We both do important work.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I want to. I know you have to catch a flight out here soon, so I want to be careful. We've gone over an hour now, which has been an awesome conversation. A couple things I wanted to ask you though, and I always ask guests when I have them on the show, is just in general, what are the other projects that you're excited about? When you look at the entire landscape, are there things where you're like, like for example, stable coins are a hot topic right now. Like, what do you think of Maker? And what are the buckets that you're looking at?
So I was talking to the guys from Maker last week, mm-hmm. And this is after a week before that. I'm proud to say that I insisted that we will add DAI to Bancor.
Right, and for people that don't know, DAI is the pegged stable coin to the US dollar.
Yeah. But it's decentralized. Unlike Tether.
That's right. It's not tied to an actual fiat, which Tether claims to be.
It's a technological marvel. The fact that people are not talking about it all the time on the crypto space is because probably most people don't understand the implication. But the implications are huge. How can I say? There are only 3 ways that people collaborate with money. One is commerce, buy and sell services from each other. The other one is lending. I give you money. I hope to get back with more because I trust you. You're a responsible person. And the third one is venture financing. So I give you money because I believe in your ability to create value and I want to share the upside. And this is the only three ways people interact with each other with money. Now, out of those three ways, the first two are done by every individual on the planet. If you use a credit card, you do commerce and you do lending, right?
Sure.
But venture financing, it's like a tiny group.
Sure.
Most of them know each other, right?
That's right.
It's so small. However, it's a very important group because it's like spearheading the innovation in the world. But it's the only use case that is not so sensitive to volatility, venture financing. This is why it's exploded first on crypto, because it's not sensitive to volatility. Yeah, I need $3 million. Who knows? We raise money from VC. If you need $5 million or $10 million, who knows? You don't know what will be in 3 months, right? And so it's okay with some level of volatility. But if you're talking about commerce and lending, it must have stable coin. And stable coin is something that is stable relative to the prices of commodity, of living, of labor. You want to survive in this place for like a month, you need X money of stable coin.
Right.
I cannot even denominate that in Bitcoin and Ether. I mean, it needs to be stable relative to the prices of labor and commodity. And when you don't have that, it's like 98% of the use cases of money can't be done.
Right.
But when you do have that, it really opens the door to amazing things. So, really appreciate the work Maker are doing, and I've been following them for a long time, and really happy to see that DAI is surviving those rough times.
Yeah, because that's a big question, right? For that one, because it does a bunch of calls on some of the locked up funds, right? Yeah. On the ETH that's being locked up.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's
working so far.
And if it continued to work, so I think I'm very excited about that. I'm also very excited about EOS. As a developer that builds on top of blockchain, I think that we are probably in the forefront on building live production services on blockchains, right? There's not many ICOs that release a product. And I can tell you from our experience, there are many, many challenges, and seems like EOS is like dealing with each and every one of them. It's almost like the BlackBerry to iPhone kind of transition. It's really, really major.
What about you do so much work on smart contracts? What about Neo?
We really like Neo, but we haven't made too much research and effort into Neo. I think it has to do with the fact that we're closer. We're closer with we were actually visiting the guys from US, and we kind of dig into the project. My impression, again, I give a lot of respect to experience, and my impression is that there's so much accumulated experience with EOS, and by the way, even more accumulated funds. I mean, their ICO is midway, and I mean, this is by far the biggest ICO in history and one of the biggest fundraisers in history. So they have a lot of resources to make it happen. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
But the Neo is definitely something that we want to be able to support sooner than later. There's something that are magical about EOS that I really appreciate, that what I call the social layer, which is not just the blockchain layer. So for example, in EOS, you wouldn't have a situation like you have with the Polkadot multisig wallet when you have $200 million stuck and cannot get out, and probably will never be out of there. That would not happen in EOS because they have this level of the social layer that enables you to deal with those kind of situations without compromising the integrity and the security of blockchain. So those kind of solutions are really intriguing my imagination, and I like to see how they unfold.
I haven't played with EOS much. Now you're making me I'm gonna second you leave for the airport, I'm gonna go dig in. Anything else that's exciting, or is that kind of the things you're focused on right now?
I think these are the highlights. I'm doing a lot of advising. So much fun. I mean, because you don't have the emotional attachment, right?
You can go to sleep at night.
With Bancor, I work on something and like, oh, I want to see it works. And if it doesn't work, why it doesn't work? It's like painful. It's suffering, but it's a good way, in a good way, suffering in a good way. But, helping other companies, then, you don't have that element. And they really appreciate the knowledge and the help. So it's a lot of fun to see. And I think, the most exciting thing from that I see in this entire industry is that because there's so much more money available for early stage, because it doesn't need to be like, again, VC money that you need to kind of say goodbye for like 10 years for tens of millions of dollars because it's liquid. So you have so much more potential money. The overhead is so small. Tens of people or hundreds of people or thousands of people can join in a single round. It's not even a problem. There's no overhead to add more people. And it's global. It'll be people from India and from China. I mean, we have like 11,000 investors in Bancor. I mean, I never had 11,000 investors in any startup.
That would be a nightmare. In any other situation, that would be a nightmare.
You know what? It was not easy because those people grilled us on the group with any question you can imagine. But guess what? It only makes you better. You need to deal with a mob of people that want answers for stuff, and you need to provide them. So you do, and they're all together in the same group.
Right?
People talk about scams. You want to scam someone if you have like a group with 5,000 investors? Good luck with that.
Yeah.
The first one that will be suspicious will get everyone else on fire.
Yeah.
So,
and then you have 5,000 people that are coming after you. So that is not a
not a good idea. So this shift of, I would say, power toward the entrepreneurs versus the investors that I see happening, and the amount of resources that entrepreneurs get to go and exercise their vision. And guess what? If they fail, they brought like 10 new engineers and product people and marketing people into this new space, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
It's so exciting because it's about when you're talking about decentralized database, it's like talking about the internet. It's like, when we had the internet, you need to rewrite everything. We needed to rewrite all the software, all the technology. It had to be rethought. And it happens again.
No, it's
because
true.
Guess what? You can do Facebook without Facebook. You can do Google without Google. You don't even need the government so much as we used to need the government for communication. As a kid, I got my TV and my phone and my radio and my mail from the government. My kids don't need the government for any of those because all the communication is on the internet, right?
Yeah.
On a decentralized communication network. But we still need the government for databases. The most important database, who has what?
Yeah.
Right? This is why they destroy it in the end of Fight Club. End of the movie.
Exactly.
This is the most important database. Who has what? But that's one database. And there's the database of who owns which land. And there's the database of medical records and database of criminal records. On all those databases, you need the government to run them. But guess what? Not anymore.
Oh man, this is crazy. You need to write a book about this because you're basically saying that the system as we know it in the next like 10 to 20 years is going to be completely gone.
Completely gone. I truly believe in that. And this is why it's so exciting to be.
And I mean, it's exciting, but it's also really scary too, because there's a little bit of comfort that comes with like knowing that things are going to be okay, even though I guess it's this false illusion that I live in, but
change is scary.
Change is always scary.
I'll give you that. And a lot of it's like who moved my cheese? That the same.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't like change. I happen to like it. I don't know. I think that
it's scary because it's coupled with like hackers in this case, and there's lots of bugs. And so we're like in those days of like, oh, everything is great. Oh, there went $500 million.
Let me
in 5 seconds.
Let me relax. Maybe comfort you.
Yeah.
That hackers, what they do today, they hack the system and they can change the database and all of that. They wouldn't be able to do that because you cannot fake a digital signature. You cannot fake it. And if you have a database made of many transactions that are signed, then a hacker can break up to the database. Maybe he can try to remove some, but even that, he will break the structure. He will break the hashes. So, can you hack into Bitcoin? I mean, good luck. It's open. Try hacking to the database. I mean, there's something more secure about those databases because they're decentralized, because they're based on cryptography. So maybe, I don't know, the hackers is not, but I think there are other reason to kind of be worried, because I think that when people are removed from power, that's a problem. Yeah. It's hard for them, and today the intermediaries, they gain a lot of power by being intermediaries.
Oh, for sure.
They can extract much more value than they add. And intermediaries, they add value. I don't argue with that. And I'll quote Joe Lubin from one of the founders of Ethereum that says that the magic with this new technology is that it enables true price discovery for intermediaries. So they get the real value.
Right.
But they cannot abuse their position as intermediaries. And I think that's beautiful. And again, taking us to a world with
it balances things out a little bit. Yeah.
More choice, less centralization, more expression of your values in your choices.
It's interesting because, I mean, like, think about credit cards for a second. Like, credit cards are a very useful, vehicle for everyday purchases, right? And we all need credit from time to time. Is an interest rate of 25%, is that the right? Probably not. They're making a lot of money there. Is it somewhere closer to like 4 or 5%? Probably. So new technologies like this will enable us to find a new kind of level ground.
If you want to lend your money, you wouldn't get 25%, right?
So exactly.
It is the intermediary.
Someone's having a nice steak somewhere.
A nice run.
Yeah. So real quick, where can people find you? So obviously Bancor.com, that's easy.
So,
how about you? Where do you hang out on the internet?
Twitter, Eyal, EYAL, and my Telegram, which I use today far more than I use email. Mm-hmm. Telegram is the messenger of the crypto. It's a standard almost.
That and Discord, and those are the two things I'm on most.
Discord, I think it's a US thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of cryptocurrencies are on there.
It's
crazy.
Sure there are.
But they also have Telegram as well. They tend to have both. But
so
what's
Telegram,
your Telegram?
It's my last name, Hertzog, Hertzog.
Mm-hmm.
And Eyal at Bancor.network. That's awesome. my email. Sure. And I'm happy to talk to anyone with great ideas.
Well, thank you for being on the show. This was great catching up. It's been 10 years or so.
Yes. It's been
Hope
great.
it doesn't go another 10 years until we do this again.
Sure.